Hey party people, Techno here, and what I have for you today is a Brinks Commercial padlock. Pretty common lock due to its availability in a lot of big box stores. For example, if you needed a padlock and you went to your local Wally World, chances are you're walking out of that store with either a Brinks, a Master Lock, or some third party no name brand lock that is probably not going to be very good. That being said, how does this lock stack up against the competition that it shares retail space with, and how is it in general overall as a security product, considering that given its wide availability and the fact that the general public is not necessarily going out being super well educated about what locks are going to be best for their uses, this is probably going to find its way to a lot of yard gates, garages, sheds, things like that, toolboxes in trucks, all that good stuff. So, how is it actually on its own merit? When looking at this lock, you can see that we have a layered steel body, just like those master locks that it's sitting next to on the shelf. Although we do have some nice plastic bumpers on the top and the bottom here to keep that steel body from marring whatever it's resting against. That's a nice touch. We also have a hardened steel, boron steel shackle here. So great, very robust shackle, which is also secured by a dual ball bearing locking system. So that's nice because that means that your shimming attacks are not going to be effective against this lock. And a few years ago, this probably would have been reason enough to choose this over the Master Locks that it was sitting next to on the shelf. But in recent years, Master Lock is updating its lineup to move away from those spring-loaded locking pawls to a dual ball bearing locking system. So no longer really a differentiator for this lock, but definitely a win overall for anybody who's picking these locks up for various uses. Moving on from there, we're getting to the core. So as far as the core goes, we have a 4-pin core, which is consistent again with the competition and also not that robust, definitely could be better there. And speaking of which, as far as the competition goes, it's also an M1 keyway. So in a lot of ways, this very much is just like the locks that it shares retail space with. So what about this lock would actually set it apart? Why would you perhaps choose this over the Master Lock equivalent? And that's going to come down to what's actually populating those 4-pin cylinders in this core, because this lock does have security pins. And to see what it takes to get into this lock and how those security pins fare against a picking attack, we're going to use a 32 thousandths top of the keyway tensioner. And I'm going to use my Sparrow's Tron pick. And now we'll jump in. So I'm on pin 4 and I can feel counter rotation already, so probably a spool pin. And a little click out of pin 4 there. Moving on to pin 3. Pin 3, we have counter rotation and a nice click out of pin 3 as well. Pin 2. Pin 2 is not really moving, no counter rotation, doesn't feel like it wants to go anywhere. So I'm going to leave pin 2 alone for the time being. Now we have pin 1 and big counter rotation on pin 1 as well. And not the smoothest core. It's kind of like sticky, hangs up a little bit as I'm pushing on those pins. Okay, so pin 1 is set and we've lost our false set, which means something probably slid down just slightly out of place. So there, I just tapped pin 4 and you can see that we have an open. So how does the core stack up? Well, I guess it depends on the context. If we're talking about in comparison to a master lock or another very cheap, like big box store kind of lock, probably better than those alternatives, just given the fact that we do have security pins. Now, in this case, I'm fairly certain that all of these security pins are spool pins. And as I've mentioned in a previous video, I believe the Master Lock 911, having all spool pins can be a detriment because any picker with a decent amount of experience is going to know how to manipulate those spool pins to basically, once you get a false set, it's kind of a cheat code to opening up that lock, unless there's some other variety of pins like serrated pins in there that complicate the picking process. That being said, those spool pins are going to make it a lot more difficult for a low skill raking attack to actually work against a lock like this. So there is still a benefit to that being there. But is this lock going to pose any kind of impediment to even a moderately skilled attacker? No, probably not. So draw your own conclusions there. Is it better than the master lock sitting next to it on the shelf? Yeah, possibly. Is it overall a good padlock? Well, in that case, physical construction, I think probably yes. But the core does still leave a fair bit to be desired, especially if this is going to be locking up anything valuable. So, with that being said, I want to say thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. And until next time, guys, take care. I will talk to you later.